Hey everyone, it is Ian Cancel here, welcoming you to this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Business podcast. Today I am joined by Ken, Paul, Jen, and Dan. And today we're continuing our discussion about content development and repurposing it. And today's topic is you've invested the time, the energy, and the money to create fantastic content. Now what? So today we're looking at marketing your content. So let's get started. Jen, the first question is for you. What do we mean by marketing your content, and why would we do this?
Why would we do this? So marketing your content would mean, so that famous blog post that you have up on your website, or a checklist, any kind of piece of content that you have up there. Unfortunately, if you build it, they don't always come and show up. So you have to go to where people are. You have to get your content out there on for example, the social networks where people are at. So this is why I think most of us follow this process when we do for example, let me go with a blog post for clients. So you have the blog post, you have it written, put it up on your website, and then you're having it go out on all the social media networks. And you're doing that because more of your potential clients are on those networks as opposed to sitting in front of your website waiting for your next blog to go up, unfortunately. So it's really important to promote the information that you have available and not just do it once. We use a term internally here called on rotation. So if you are blogging and creating content that is evergreen, so something like evergreen would be, it makes sense, it's valuable content today, tomorrow, in 6 weeks, perhaps in 6 months. That kind of information can be rotated out on the social networks, often, and not just once, not just the day it's published. So it's important to do that because you have to get your content out to where people are at.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And Ken, that leads nicely into the next question. What are some of the best ways to market your content? And are there free ways you can do it and paid ways? And maybe just explain some of those opportunities people have.
Yeah, absolutely. So, exactly, what Jen said in that you want to set up anytime you publish content, whether it's a YouTube video or anything like that, if there's an opportunity for you to automatically syndicate that to the channels that or people are going to be spending time on, whether it's social, getting it to your website, email newsletters. Don't forget about the power of email to your list. Lists are gold. If you don't have them, build them. Content is a great way to get people to say, hey, this is good, valuable stuff. I'm learning a lot of good stuff here. But don't forget about your local chambers or the associations that you're a member of. If you write a great blog post, maybe instead of publishing that on your website, or in addition to publishing it onto your website, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, getting it out there through your chamber channels. They'll put it on. If it's a great blog post, they'll put it on their website. They'll share links to it through their chamber newsletters that they do, email newsletters they do every week, or whatever their rotation or frequency is. The associations are the same way. Everybody's craving content. They want content. So if you've got quality content and you already have that deep relationship with somebody, by all means, leverage that. And then, I think all of us probably look at doing boosted posts to pay a little bit to drive traffic to our great content that we create. Because as Jen said, just because you build it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to come to it and read it. But and we build out 12-month social media campaigns for almost every blog post we do. If it's not an evergreen kind of a blog post, we don't do that. We keep it more seasonally focused. But you just want to keep doing that. And if you do that, what we see is people come and read that content, they stick around, and then they go look at other content on your website, and it's a huge SEO signal. So you've got to market your content. It's absolutely critical.
one of the things that came to mind while you were saying that, Ken, is I've seen this in larger companies or companies that have kind of the longer sales process. But you had talked about emailing content. One of the things one of the ways I've seen it used and leveraged well is to use that content during the sales process. So, meaning, perhaps you haven't heard from somebody in a while, and they're an interested party in your service or your product. You can send them a blog post that's relevant to their decision making process, right? And that can be a very valuable way of not just, leveraging content you've created, but actually using it to help people at a time when they need it most.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic point. I mean, I was really looking at it and thinking about it a little bit more about how you can automate as much of this stuff as possible. But you're exactly right. If you've had a conversation with a prospect or even an existing client that has a problem that they need to have solved, and you've written a blog post about it, share that with them. Or if you've done a video that talks about that issue and how you've solved it or anything like that, share that content with them. And that could be a one-on-one transactional email. And that could be incredibly powerful as well, for converting a prospect, but also retaining an existing customer.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Dan, are there social networks or other channels that you find have been more effective for marketing your content? And how would a business owner know the best place to share their content on those networks? Like which networks to choose?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the ones, I will be totally biased here because I think for business to business,
TikTok, right?
Yeah, TikTok, Tinder.
Especially with dance moves, right?
What pictures have you seen? No, the thing that I think is always really, really important for LinkedIn is understanding. I'm definitely, it's hard not to recommend LinkedIn. I will say that. But even as you look at that, there's such layers to that. Like, let's just take that for example. You got your status stuff, you got your article postings, you got your sales navigator search and how you can find people, and then the in-mails. But even within that, the method of how we communicate in that is changing by the day. Literally yesterday, I'm really excited about this tool. Vidyard has done this amazing tool that is like an extension on your in-mail in-message to prospects or connections. And so you can actually just click on something and say, hey, so-and-so, I was reading about your company and I, just wanted to reach out, not in a silly way, but I think that you're going to see more and more of this. So in answer to your question about, the different types of channels, that's one where in itself, there's probably 4 or 5 different avenues of how you can communicate. And I got this very question maybe an hour ago from someone, and my point of view on this, and I hope it's not blasphemy to SEO people. I think you got to experiment and put it out there, Like, I know that you might say duplicate content is bad, but if you're going to do a blog, for example, put it on your site, put it on Medium, put it on LinkedIn, put it on, do a video of it. Right now, there's no wrong way at that point to do your content. It's more about what is, the collection of 3 or 4 channels that you believe works very well for your particular audience and measure against them. It doesn't mean, oh gosh, that post did bad, so I should not do LinkedIn anymore. It means like, let's see what's working. There's a lot of experimenting that should be going on. Certainly there's not one way to rule them all. So that's from a business to business standpoint, that's my recommendation.
Yeah, and also that kind of follows along with what I was talking about. If you're a member of an association, you may get more value out of posting it directly on that association site and leveraging their SEO, then putting it on your website for your own SEO purposes. So you're exactly right, Dan. You've got to experiment. And the key thing I think is post on multiple channels, but just give a little bit of thought about where is going to get the most SEO value for you, because that's where you want to post it first, and then you can repost it on other channels.
And Dan, you can share content with groups as well. Like if you're a group of within, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, wherever it is, you can share your content with those groups. And in essence, you've already whittled down or targeted who those people are. Like they may be suppliers of a particular type of group. Like I'm just thinking, like with dentists, I'm a part of like dental groups, dentist groups, dental marketing groups within LinkedIn. And those are places I like to share content because we're targeting those particular types of people. But any business could do that, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you probably, we always talk about e-newsletter lists, but I think this is the same principle, is that you should have almost social media lists, if you will, of, it's the same thing. You want to, no matter what format, really, there's got to be different relationships that you're going to have with different people that deserve their own messages to some degree. And by the way, it goes without saying, those messages don't always have to originate from you. It can be, I curated this and I thought this was good for you. Or, I think this is really a good way to do it, is looking at some strategic partners or people that, you just really, you like, and you kind of want to, make sure that their stuff gets out there. So just give you an example on LinkedIn, you don't have to have Sales Navigator to do this, but I use it for this purpose. Is I have like 100 people who are my friends, colleagues, people I just really respect. Any of the folks on this call, of course, but any marketing consultants, people that I really, we have a alignment with. It's boring to some extent to just blast out your own stuff, your own voice. I would rather say, oh, what is Ian posting about today? What is Ken posting about today? And suddenly there's a bigger community within a community, if you will, of, some nice alignment. And in doing that, hopefully it's kind of a reciprocal effect that's going to happen. You post something from Jen's like, oh, okay, I'll have it top of mind. Maybe I'll post something from him next time.
Yeah.
And so I don't think you have to shoulder that burden all by yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've talked a lot about LinkedIn, but for the businesses that are listening in, I'm just going to open this up to anyone. It can be Dan if you want to answer this, or it can be anyone. But how would a business go about finding, knowing that you can't spend tons of time? In fact, I haven't finished my sentence, but you can't spend tons of time on every single social network. Like most businesses don't have the time, the energy, the resources to do that. So I often recommend to clients, choose one or two social networks where, and really focus your energy. But how would they choose those? Anyone want to jump into that?
Yes, I'll jump into that.
Yeah.
Through testing, really. I mean, and that's where it may take a little bit more time in the beginning. But the hurdle we run into is business owners oftentimes bring in their personal either love or hate for certain social networks into deciding what they're going to do for their business. And the thing is, you may be cutting yourself off from a huge amount of potential clients that way. So I would say if you hate Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it is that you hate, let's do a few tests to see what's happening on that network and see if it's receptive to your potential clients. But even before doing that, you can do your own audit on the networks and see what kind of conversations are going on in your industry about your product or service that, should you jump into? Should you be a part of that? So I would really caution the either negative or overly positive a desire to be on a certain social network or away from a certain social network, because it could really be cutting you off from a, new client.
But if you despise Facebook, I understand.
I'll add to that too, that if you're going to test, and a lot of people, and we all do it, it's easy to do, where you broadcast the same thing, the same exact post to all of the major social media channels. And sometimes that's okay to do. But if you're really going to test to see what works best for you, you really need to think about the way you should communicate through each of the social networks. I mean, the style that you're going to communicate on LinkedIn may be dramatically different than what you're going to do on Instagram, and absolutely probably on TikTok, right? So you want to think through that. A great example of that is hashtags. Hashtags are so much more important on Instagram and Twitter than they are on Facebook. And when you write a post and your primary channel is on Instagram, but you load it up with a bunch of hashtags, that's obvious to anybody who's using Facebook on a regular basis that what you're doing. And it may be a turnoff, and maybe it's not, but even the style and the tone of voice that you use on a channel like LinkedIn is going to be radically different. So you want to make sure you're thinking that through as you're testing.
Yeah, I mean, I would simply add that don't forget to look at your competitors too. The people and the people who are your true competitors, the people who are overlapping in some of the content that you're putting out there that you tend to go head to head with. Where are they communicating? Because that can be an influence. But I will say this: I tend to go narrow and deep when it comes to choosing, no matter what those are. And I think the more you can be all in on some of these after a certain point, the better. I do not really personally recommend, trying 10 different channels just because, my kid in college says Instagram is where it's at, or, TikTok I hear is hot. That's like the worst thing ever to pick a social media channel by. Clubhouse is that's the one right now. But I think you always have to come back to what are the people in my industry using, and how are they saying this stuff? It doesn't mean that you have to do the same by any means, but it will definitely give you a pretty good idea of what you should have on your short list, and then kind of say what feels natural for me. Just because somebody's doing a Facebook Live doesn't mean that you have to be doing a Facebook Live too. So, but I find it does help a lot for narrowing down, say, the top 3 to 5 on your list, no more than that.
Awesome comments. Something Jen said, I feel obligated to make a public service announcement at this point in this podcast.
Oh boy,
for the safety of business owners out there, do not make decisions through your own filter, your own likes and dislikes. We see this all the time across clients we work with, prospects we talk to. If you don't like email, do not count out email marketing. If you don't like Facebook, don't count it out. Maybe that's where your ideal customer is. So a great way to overcome that, and this is a plug for the guys on this call, is hire a third-party objective marketing consultant that can actually guide you through that process, because we see it all the time. We all have our own unobjective filters that we look at the world through, and if we let that guide our business making decisions or we will make some bad ones. So that's my public service announcement.
No, that's a great point, because I think there's a lot of people in leadership roles, and we've heard this a million times. Oh, I can do it myself. I can just do this. I can just do that. I can just go up and do content, no problem. Well, with all due respect, I think there's a couple problems with that, which is, number one, I think if you try to do it, it may not sound or look as good as you think it does. And that's one thing. But number two, is it taking time away from other things that you have to absolutely do? It's not a question of can you, it's should you. Yes, you can go and do your video and you can rip off, Facebook Lives and things like that, or try to bang out a blog. But is it taking any time away from your new business development, from your account service, from your other things that hat has to be worn by you? Like, you can't pass that stuff off to somebody else. Whereas your content, you can. And that is something that it's, any one of us, I think we don't go to our corners necessarily and say, we're never going to show this to you. It's more that part of the job can be done by somebody else and save you a whole lot of time.
Like content marketing.
What content marketing say? Yeah. I mean, we have this all the time, don't we? I mean, it's true for any of us. There's things that you can do as a business owner that it's not a question that you can do it. It's not the best use of your time. Somebody smart on this call once told me that, actually. Like, you should not be doing that, Dan. You're right, Jen. So,
I thought I was.
She's right. So
we're like a bunch of siblings here.
Having said that, though, there is a really good book out there that helps guide you on making understanding enough to know that you're hiring the right person, and maybe there's some things that you can do there, and it's called the Content Guides or Content Marketing for Local Search, right?
I've heard
Absolutely.
Of that. I've heard of that
book before.
Yeah.
Go out and buy that book, everyone.
It's a great gift.
Hey, I'm going to jump into the next question. This one's for Paul. In previous episodes, we've talked about the importance of tracking and measurement of all your marketing activities so that you know if you're being successful or not successful, what levers to pull, what levers not to pull. Are there ways we can track the effectiveness of our content marketing efforts to know whether we're doing it right, wrong, needs to be tweaked? Tell me about that, Paul.
Yes, absolutely. In a digital world, pretty much anything can be tracked. And usually when someone asks, can this be done? What they're really asking is, how can I do this? And that's a much more involved question. And if you're paying to drive traffic, then whatever platform you're using is going to have data on that, and you set up conversion tracking, and that platform will give you that data if you know where to look. A good way to do it, especially from an organic standpoint, if you're not paying, is to use Google Analytics. And that's where you get into the how do you do it, because you have to set things up in Google Analytics. You have to set up goals within Analytics. So it's a more involved process. You can use UTM parameters, which no one is going to do except a marketing agency that knows how to set those up. So yes, it can absolutely be done. It's the how do you do it that gets involved, and is probably more involved than what someone is going to do on their own.
Yeah. So there are ways, and that's the important thing to know for business owners, that
yes, absolutely,
there are ways to track it and measure it, and it helps to have expertise helping you. Mm-hmm. Jen, are there potential challenges for marketing content that our listeners should be aware of? And if there are, how can they overcome those particular challenges?
Yeah, there is. But I just want to leap back to something that Ken said that I wanted to comment on as well. So Ken was talking about, okay, if you're speaking with a client and they're at a certain level in the sales cycle with you, a good thing to do could be to send off a blog post about that topic or those questions or where they're at, before they buy from you in an email. And, it's really important for us to remember that we're not just doing that for the case of, putting our content out everywhere. As we're getting to know potential clients, we don't know if they, do they learn and retain information best if we're talking to them on a Zoom call? Is it best that they go away and they read some of the information to really retain it and, build the trust with us? So the idea of having your content go out to support kind of what you just said in the meeting or something like that, it's very, very useful. We just have to remember that, folks retain and learn and take in content in a whole bunch of different ways. So it's another way we can, get more mileage out of the content.
That's a great point.
But if you're talking about the challenges of it, I mean, the challenges that we run into is, just, oh my goodness, like we have to do this cycle again and again with every blog or every piece of content. We have to put it out there. Don't people get tired of hearing about us? So we face that kind of, and again, it's funny that you said it seems to be the business owner getting in their way. I don't want to bother people too much. I've said that already. I'm smarter than this. Why am I talking about the 101 level thing? But I would caution it's most important to really put yourself in the shoes of your potential buyer that doesn't know as much about, the service or product that you're offering as you do. And, coming to them at their level is absolutely just fine. And as well, the other pushback we get is, aren't we promoting ourselves too much, And the thing is, again, no one's sitting in front of your Twitter stream waiting for you to post the next thing, unfortunately. But so it's just getting used to the amount of work, actually, that every piece of content needs to have as it, goes out into the wild.
I remember in the corporate world where I worked for a long time, you learned eventually that as much as your boss is your advocate, there's no greater advocate in your career than yourself. And in fact, that was advice given to me by a boss. Mm-hmm. And I think it's true with your business as well. In something you said there, Jen, is that you have to advocate for your business because no one else will. I mean, occasionally you'll get some props from people. They'll give you reviews, they'll give you testimonials, they might refer you, but nobody else will care as much about your business, its success, the content you're creating as yourself. So don't assume, anybody else is going to care as much as you. So I thought that was a very good point.
If you're solving a problem, why wouldn't you want to share it?
Right. Right. It's almost a disservice not to share it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, again, this may go against the rules out there, but I think sometimes we care way too much about a post, but when we put it out there, somebody said, "Well, how do you cope with it when you do a post and you only get so many likes?" I'm like, damn it, it's a post. Like, who cares? Like, it's a freaking post. Like, it's not, you're not dying. Like, it's a post. Like, so just get up tomorrow and do another one. And you just keep going. And it's not, I can tell you personally, I mean, this is not something I say to my clients, but for me personally, I don't give a damn what, whether a post gives me 3 likes or 300 likes. It's more important in that moment for me to get it out there. We are our own worst enemy sometimes about that. And it really is like, hey, I got to put it in a draft folder. I got to make it perfect. And you're not Hemingway. Like, just put it out there. And this is something that people need to hear. Perfection is going to be your enemy when it comes to content. And I cannot impress that upon people more as they think about marketing it. Because you always have a moment, we've talked about this before, you always have a moment where you can evolve it later on and refresh it. We were just talking about that. Mm-hmm. So don't worry about, it's not going to go in the art museum. But it is going to help a lot of people with what you have to say. So don't rob them of that.
That's an interesting point, and that is exactly a good segue into why you need to use your analytics, because not every blog post, not every person that finds value in your content is going to make a big song and dance about it, right? So, at the back end, you can see, okay, maybe 3 likes, maybe 346 clicks on it, right? So, so just be aware of that as well.
Yeah. I mean, just we do tend to. There's a guy I follow, and I wish I could remember his name right now, but he had a very good point, whoever you are, that he said, likes, we get wrapped up in the likes. We get wrapped up in the shares and the comments. We don't tend to look as much at the views, because sometimes we look at this stuff, we read it, and, we're still absorbing the content. It's just that maybe we don't have a particular like or comment. It doesn't mean we don't appreciate it. So don't discount the views because those eyeballs do matter as well. And again, I hate to go back to LinkedIn, but LinkedIn will tell you pretty quickly how well that's going and what your visibility is.
That's awesome. Ken, we often think of free content because, so many businesses are using blog posting, which is usually free. It's not gated. Oftentimes you can attend a free webinar. There's all sorts of free content out there, but there's also paid content. People are often looking, there's reasons for having paid content. What are some examples of paid content, and how would you market them differently than free content?
Yeah, that's a great point. I actually was having a conversation this morning with an e-commerce store. And, really, they've got content on their website, but the whole goal of the content is to get you to buy that product, right? So from, the power is in the list. I'm telling you, you want to grow your list. Text message marketing to announce every time you have a sale or a new product is on your store, that's new content, right? Text message marketing gets 90% open rates of text messages received are opened. 45% or more of links in a text that somebody has opted into gets clicked. Nothing else comes even close to that. So do not rule out using text message marketing. Even for us, if we send a message out as a text message to remind people to show up for a webinar or to show up to watch this live stream as it's happening live so that they could engage with us and interact, super powerful. So don't forget, I forgot about text message marketing earlier. It doesn't make any difference whether it's paid or free. It's a huge factor.
Yeah, for sure. It's and it's the easiest funnel, if you will, I think, out there. It doesn't have to be a very complex thing.
Right. But you can make it have some really nice follow-up sequences and automate the process too, if you choose to do that. Yeah. So, if you're putting together a course, where somebody is going to be watching a course, again, if you're trying to get people to pay to join that, I think everything we've talked about here would apply for free and for paid strategies. You might want to pay a little bit more for paid content because, you're going to be making money when somebody, subscribes or purchases, so the dynamics and how much you might spend on it might change a little bit. But I think fundamentally the concepts, I think, probably apply pretty well to either paid or free. The reality is, I think Jen started out our conversation. When you create it, doesn't mean that they're going to come and view it. You've got to help them. Now if you're a powerhouse like, do I find Neil Patel's content organically through search? Or do I go read the content because I'm on his email newsletter? I'll tell you, I read it because 90% of the time because I'm on his email newsletter. The other time is I'm doing a search because I have a problem, and then I'm going to find his content because he's got a lot of content. He does a fantastic job with SEO, but he's focused on solving problems, which is what I tend to search for the most. And so from that perspective, don't forget about the power of the list.
Yeah.
It's gold.
And I think, at the risk of saying something that people might already know, I think it's worth repeating is that, sometimes people just race out there and they throw emails on a list and shoot it out there and gosh, why am I in trouble now? Right. So I think if you are, I absolutely agree. If you, I believe if you start off with maybe just a really nice email personally to them, and it might take some time, but say, hey, Ken, I thought since we're connected that you might enjoy getting this e-newsletter that I'm about to put out. I think you'll get a lot of value out of it. If you don't want to be included on the list, just let me know. Something like that. Yeah. And anyone correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, but I think if you do that as a preliminary to your list, then you'll be in great shape. And my gosh, if you can have even 200, 300 people on a list and it's all clean and it doesn't bounce back, and you've, had that kind of that message to them, I think it'll go a long way towards your ongoing relationship with them through your e-newsletter.
Yeah. And if you're selling like an e-commerce solution, a product off of an e-commerce site, for example, going back to your past customers and getting them to come back and buy again, we've talked about the power of that. They already know, like, and trust you. So again, it's like, just because you put a new product on your store doesn't mean that people know that it's there. You still have to remind people and drive them there.
Yep.
One of my favorite free/paid content marketing things I've seen is authors that put out a really great book, and it's probably self-published, but they are offering the book to you for free, but you have to pay the shipping. And I think that puts some skin in the game, and it's kind of a neat way. Obviously, a lot of effort has been put into building that content because it's a book. And now they've figured out a way to, and make it a paid and a free kind of thing.
Yeah.
Dan, a lot of content will have tons of copywriting involved, because you're communicating, you're talking to people, you're sharing information. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of having great content when promoting and marketing your content. So not in the content itself, but now in the marketing of that content. Is copywriting important? And talk to me a bit about that.
Yeah. I think there's definitely, it's just a huge thing, because I'll give you an example. Let's say that we have uncovered 100 prospects through whatever social media channel that we're using. We've talked about funnels before and the importance of how your messages should be. Well, think about the messages you get every day through email, through LinkedIn, maybe even through Facebook, and from people who are cold pitching you. And it's just like, there's no effort to do any relationship building whatsoever. And the second email you get from them is, "Hey, Dan, just bumping this thing up to the top." And I'm like, what am I looking at? And it's just, there's no effort. And the point of saying that is, we have to get really good about making every single message count in a different value added way. You can't just rely anymore on putting one message out there and then just, reminding them that, "Hey, I sent you this. Hey, I sent you this." It's got to be different every time in the cadence. So is it an ebook, and how are you introducing that ebook through your content? Is it, a checklist? Is it a video? Is whatever it is, a piece of news? All of these things have to be introduced when you market it, and it all has to be written in a pretty compelling way to introduce it. So I think the need to have, even right down to social media blurbs, believe it or not, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, even Twitter, 140 characters has to be compelling. So all of that stuff has to be, in my mind, very easy to get into and conversational. You don't have a lot of time. So that's where, I think being an advertising copywriter in my past life, where I didn't have a lot of room to write ads, probably serves me pretty well these days, because you could go long on a lot of things, but you don't have a lot of room to go long in certain things to get their attention. So it's really an art form, and you got to make sure when you're putting that content out there that, that first paragraph or two means everything. It does. And if you can't do it in a good, compelling way up front, then kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
And from the sounds of it, this would apply to Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, wherever you're advertising, LinkedIn ads. Make sure it's compelling.
Anything that can be written is an opportunity. And it doesn't matter, I will put it right down to, this is a form of marketing your content, really. In your profile on LinkedIn, again, I will say that there is a new thing called creator mode, and it's going to roll out. Well, it is forcing a lot of us to, we have an about section about each of us, where we can write a whole lot. We only get about 3 sentences to say who we are and what makes us different now, and without clicking on anything. So that's a form of marketing yourself and marketing your content, because if they aren't caught by that, they're not going to click. And that's how we have to view all this stuff. If there's no clicking involved, is it compelling? And I think the professionals can help with that.
Awesome. Paul, we talked a bit about Facebook ads. I think a common question that comes up to anybody that has a Facebook profile, because Facebook puts it right out there. When you post, do you want to boost this post? But what's the difference between boosting a post and running an ad? And what are the strengths and weaknesses of each technique?
Yeah, I'll caveat this by saying in 2 weeks this will be out of date.
Especially with Facebook, right? Yeah.
But it really comes down to your targeting and your budgeting. Facebook makes it very easy to boost a post because they want you to spend money. But you can't set a specific budget, for instance. All you can do is say, I want to spend this much over this amount of time. And your targeting options are very limited, which, depending on what you're trying to do, that might be good enough. And you can't edit a post once it's boosted. You're simply taking something you posted on Facebook, putting money behind it to reach more people. In a nutshell, that's what you're doing. An ad is a more thought out campaign where you're creating the ad, and you can do split testing. You can test variations. So you can have several ads with different combinations of headlines and ad text and images or videos. So you can have these different variations, and you can get your analytics from Facebook saying this post did this well, or this ad did this well, and this ad didn't do that well. So you can pause those ads. You have much better targeting options with Facebook ads as opposed to a boosted post. And you can edit certain parts of the creative, as it's called, in midstream. So you can go in there and change ad copy. You can change images. You can change body text. So you have a lot more options with an ad. And awesome. Those are really the difference. I mean, you could write a blog post on this probably. Maybe Ken should.
Or you. I will say boosted posts are better than they used to be. When they first came out, they were extremely limiting. But if you're a restaurant and you wanted to do a boosted post, about the special of the day, boom, it's done. You can set a target audience. It can be even just, within a 3-mile radius of people who are likely. You know what? That's perfect. I mean, you're not going to get any better performance if you went in and built an ad.
Oh yeah, boosted posts definitely have their place.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a time and a place for sure.
And those differences, depending on what you're trying to do, those differences can be significant. Yeah. And like Ken just mentioned, in that instance, it would make no sense to create an ad. That's a perfect example of just go boost the post.
Yeah.
My life is extremely busy, complicated. So when I hear certain things, I try to oversimplify them so I can understand them and lock them away in my brain. And tell me if I'm right or wrong, but when Facebook changed their algorithm, where prior to the change, as a business, we used to get lots of organic traffic. If somebody was a follower of us as a business, they would see our organic posts. When Facebook changed that, funny enough, post boosting became much more in your face. Am I right in thinking and slotting this in my brain that boosting a post is really Facebook's answer to us as businesses to just getting it's paid, it's not organic anymore, but it's paid visibility in front of our clients or our followers even.
Probably for the most part, Facebook, going back to what you said when they change their algorithm, it's all about pay to play. It's all about making money and collecting data. That's what Facebook is about now.
And Facebook, don't boot me off for saying that. I still like it. So.
Yeah. But I mean, part of it is a pragmatic problem, right? Because, when you start to get the number of posts that are out there and you start to get the total number of users out there, how in the world are you going to deliver the content to everybody? I mean, so sure, I think there's a clear bias that, and I don't think anybody makes any secrets about this, that, page content gets less performance and less reach than personal content. But, I mean, it's like you get what you pay for, right? So if you expect everything to be free, do you really expect to get quality results all the time? So sometimes spending money is going to give you a lot better results. And I think in this case, it does. I mean, it makes me mad in certain respects, because it is frustrating back, 6 years ago, it was great because you could post something and you would get, some results from Facebook. Today. You do that from your page, you may get practically no visibility on it whatsoever. But, I mean, what do we all really expect ultimately?
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually do kind of understand why Facebook did what they did. But I think they went a little too far. Because if you don't pay to boost a post, like 10 people are going to see that post.
This is a good place to start to wrap up. Anybody have any last 30-second snippets that you feel super compelled to share with our listeners about marketing your content?
Yes, I do. I'll be quick. I noticed, and I kind of posted about this the other day, is look at sort of the cumulative effect of what a feed has when it's your feed and what you think somebody is probably, who is your prospect, of what they're seeing and what they're going through. If you are marketing your content and you are basically having a message of, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, and it's very in your face how-to kind of content, regardless of how you market it, you're going to be one more voice among that crowd, which is pretty debilitating. I mean, there's a lot of that going on, particularly on LinkedIn. And I think as you consider that, how can you, besides promoting, your business and the features of it and things like that, how can you be sort of helpful in showing them, how you basically take them behind the kitchen and show them how the secret sauce is made, and be more of a Sherpa and a guide and a friendly voice. I think that is, when we talk about how to help your content stay and stand out, I think generally speaking, people respond better to that. And so I think if the more we can do that, the more we'll stand out in a good way. And that will help us as we go to market it later on.
I wanted to make a couple of points that I don't think we really addressed. One is, if you're a home remodeling contractor, a painter, folks like that, posting pictures, putting them on your website, having a project description is great. Share those pictures on social media and don't just put them on social media though, drive people back to read the project description, because that's where you can say, here's the problem we solve for our customer. So don't forget about that. If you're a restaurant, post stuff, drive people back to your menu, get them or drive them to their online ordering when you're posting pictures. So don't forget about that. Two other things. One is I know a lot of people freak out because they see posts that happen that we do. We get this all the time from our clients. You're posting too much on social media. No, we're not. Posting twice a day on Facebook is on your Facebook business page is perfectly acceptable. As a matter of fact, I think it's the critical number you should be thinking about. LinkedIn, I don't know the statistics on. Twitter, you can do more. Instagram, you can do more. You might want to post 4 times on those channels. Again, some of those posts are just, status updates. Some of those posts are going to be to try to drive traffic back to the content you created. And then the last thing is curated content. People, we always get this as well. Why are you posting to other people's content, to my competitor? And it's like, I'm sharing valuable information that people are attributing to you as helping them solve a problem. And yeah, they're a competitor, but they're 500 miles or 2,000 miles away. So they're not a competitor. They're not in market, but they have good ideas, good content. And as Dan talked about before, reciprocity. If people see that we're sharing content, maybe they'll share some of our content as well.
True.
Any other thoughts? No, my parting thought is, and it's a reminder, because everything these 5 people on this podcast believe in is be strategic. So when you're creating the content, know what the strategy is and the reason and the purpose and the audience is, and then measure it and have goals for that content and keep track of it. And I probably just opened up a can of worms with everyone, but this has been a fantastic topic, guys. We've gone on a little bit longer than normal, but I think it's been really valuable to our listeners to understand, how to market your content and what that can look like. Thank you each for sharing your thoughts. And thank you to the listeners for joining us. Remember, if there's a topic our listeners you want to hear about, drop us a line and we'd be happy to talk about that. Have a wonderful week.